12-year-old Perigee has never met a problem they couldn't solve. So when their dad's spirits need raising, Perigee formulates the plan. A road trip to Dad's childhood home to reunite him with his estranged mother. There's something in it for Perigee, too, as they will finally get to visit Eklund's Puzzle House, the mysterious bed and breakfast their grandparents built but never opened. They arrive ahead of a massive storm, and the house immediately puts Perigee's logical, science-loving mind to the test. Corridors shift. Strange paintings lurk in the shadows. Encoded messages abound. Despite Perigee's best efforts, neither the house nor Grandma will give up their secrets. And worse, prickly Grandma has outlawed games and riddles of any kind. Even the greatest of plans can crumble, and as new arguments fill the air, the house becomes truly dangerous. Deadly puzzles pop up at every turn, knives spin in the hallways, and staircases disappear. The answer lies at the heart of the house, but in order to find it, Perigee and their new friend Lily will need to solve a long-lost, decades-old riddle, if the house itself doesn't stop them first. My preview today is Puzzleheart by Jenn, Reese. On the way to Eklund's puzzle house, it started to snow. Not a timid, fluffy snow with flakes content to drift to the ground and sink slowly into the earth. No, this snow fell with a driving need. It hurtled down from the sky, so hungry, intent on gobbling up everything. By the time Dad turned their hatchback onto the long, lonely road up the mountain and into the deepest part of the forest, 6 inches of the stuff blanketed the trees and street signs and roads, and the snow wasn't even close to done. Perigee sat in the passenger seat and tried not to explode into a million fidgety pieces. Usually they let their excitement, road trip, Grandma, and nervousness, surprise awful snowstorm in March, bubble out of their mouth, but Dad had been white-knuckling the steering wheel for miles. The last thing he needed was Perigee's worries piled on top of his own. Radio, Dad asked. Somewhere during the last mile, the classic rock station they'd been listening to had become jittery fuzz. Perigee hadn't even noticed. In a way, static paired perfectly with the falling snow. A white noise sound machine to go with all the visual white noise. It maybe even helped to calm Perigee's nerves. But Dad clearly didn't find it relaxing, and therefore it had to go. Your co-pilot is on it. Perigee rotated the dial, methodically searching for another station. They found nothing but the same staticky murmur. They switched it off. Dad leaned forward, trying to see the road. I could hum, maybe, or sing. No singing, Perigee amended quickly. You might drive off a cliff just to make it stop. Dad gave a half-hearted chuckle, then squinted into the distance. Can you read that road sign? Perigee followed his gaze. A thin pole stood defiant in the storm. It says Enigma Lane. That must be it. Did Grandma and Grandpa build their house here because of this street name? Dad turned onto the tiny road and the car fishtailed. Dad got it under control before answering. Nope, they got to name the road themselves since there was nothing up here before they came. Whoa! Perigee's mind went on a brief but rollicking tangent. What would they name a street if they got to pick anything? Maybe Lightsaber Lane or Supernova Street? No, Perigee could do better. As soon as they got a chance, they'd have to pull out a notebook and fill it with ideas until they settled on a good one. To most kids, it was only a hypothetical question, but Perigee's brain treated hypotheticals just as seriously as things like, what will I have for lunch? And do I have any math homework? Almost there, Dad said. Keep your eyes peeled. Perigee pressed their forehead to the cold glass of the side window and peered into the darkness. They had grown up with Dad's stories about Eklund's puzzle house, stories that sounded more like fairy tales than memories. His parents, Grandma and Grandpa Eklund, had built the mansion themselves from the ground up. It was supposed to be a place where people would not only solve puzzles, but live them. Nowadays, escape rooms were a fun way to pass a few hours, but a million years ago, when Grandma and Grandpa were young, Eklund's puzzle house would have been one of a kind, if it had ever opened to the public. Now Grandma lived there alone, and Dad never saw her. Perigee had only met her once, when they were a baby, and they remembered nothing. Dad had framed a picture of Grandma holding them in their little green onesie and hung it in Perigee's room. Grandma was not laughing or smiling. In fact, she looked as if she were holding a sack of dirty diapers instead of a baby. But it was the expression in her eyes that gave Perigee chills. Grandma was glaring at the camera as if she could explode it with her thoughts. No wonder Dad and Grandma hadn't met up since then. But all of that was about to change because Perigee had enacted the plan, and not even this surprise blizzard could stop it. A hulking shape emerged in the distance. I can see it, Perigee said. Eklund's puzzle house. Good thing, Dad said. I'm not sure we could have driven much further in this weather. T-minus 10 minutes until we're sitting by a fire drinking hot chocolate out of ridiculously large mugs, they said. The snow continued to fall, blurring the landscape and then erasing it altogether. By the time they pulled into Grandma's long, arcing driveway, the world was a vast white sketchbook page, blank except for the misshapen ink blot of the house at its very center. Perigee stepped out of the warm car, and Eklund's puzzle house towered above them like a gigantic vulture, eyeing a juicy bit of meat. Through the snow, Perigee could just make out clusters of mismatched windows, a tangle of spires reaching into the sky, a cascade of awnings that seemed to protect nothing at all. Someone had chosen to paint the house the same purpley blue as a tender bruise. What the heck, Grandma? Even the lights clinging to the exterior had been affixed in odd places. Over the windows and on the roof and even next to the crooked chimneys, their bulbs flickered weakly as if threatening to go out at any moment and return the house to the night. Uh-oh, Perigee said, but not loud enough for Dad to hear. And this has been a preview of Puzzleheart.